For a second, I didn't think this was actually possible, but it turns out it actually was. Toronto FC have signed a player. 32-year-old Norwegian striker Adama Diomande has signed with Toronto FC. Diomande is a veteran presence who should give us some much-needed striker depth next season. Now, Diomande, at the age of 32, coming to Toronto FC, he'll be 33 by the time the season starts. He is a bit of a journeyman player. Actually, more than a bit of a journeyman player. Over the course of his career, Toronto FC is the 13th senior club he will suit up for. The previous 12 being Lyn, Skid, Hod, Strømgodset, all in Norway, Dynamo Minsk in Belarus for one season at Stabæk, again in Norway, Hull City for 3 years, the first and final coming in the championship, the middle one coming in the Premier League. This guy actually played in the Premier League. LAFC in MLS, the Guangzhou Mighty Lions in the Chinese Super League, Al Salia and Al Arabi in Qatar, back in 2022 to Odd in the Norwegian League, and now with Toronto FC. Now, a lot of teams he's played for in the past. The relevant ones there, though, are Stabæk and LAFC. Now, these two teams are relevant because there is one connecting link between his time at those two teams and his time at Toronto FC, and that is the manager at both LAFC and Stabæk when he was there was Bob Bradley. Now, happily for us, his one season at Stabæk and his 2 seasons at LAFC were his 3 most productive seasons ever. As in 2015 at Stabæk, he had 25 goals in 26 games, and in 2018 and 2019 in LAFC, he had 12 goals in 21 games and then 12 goals in 29 games. So a guy who a couple years ago was shown to be a decent striker in MLS and has shown several occasions on 2 different teams that under Bob Bradley he can put in a regular goal here or there. Diomande by no means is going to be our starting striker for the whole season. I don't see that occurring. There are rumors that we're still trying to get like a higher end striker, but right now we have 3 guys who are all kind of at the level to put in a regular shift in MLS as a striker in Jimenez, Akinola, and now Diomande. So it's going to be interesting to see how those 3 guys kind of get rotated throughout the lineup. I could very much imagine that we're kind of in a situation of if you score one game, you start the next game, and we're just going to rotate you guys through that. I mean, that would be fun. It also gives us another option off the bench, as like in past years, I feel like we've been very weak in terms of at the striker group bringing in guys off the bench, because like we start our starting striker, whether it had been Jimenez or Akinola, and if they're not scoring that game or if they're not playing well that game, the bench is just desolate aisles in terms of guys who can score goals. I mean, Patrick Mullins, Dom Dwyer, Terrence Boyd have not really been the greatest striker depth an MLS club has seen. So now we have 3 kind of unknowns at striker, because we have Jimenez, who started last season great, and then the second half of last season was not great. Akinola, who kind of needs to regain his 2020 form. If he can regain that, he's still young, so it still can be salvaged, but we need him to regain that semblance of form if he's going to be consistent at all or be a player in MLS going forward. And now Diomande is an interesting one because he's going to be 33 by the time the season starts. 4 years ago in Major League Soccer, he was pretty good, but since then he's kind of bounced around between like China, 2 teams in Qatar, and then a team in Norway. Hasn't gotten like consistent real play time anywhere, hasn't been a consistent contributor scoring goals anywhere. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can regain the form he had in 2018, 2019 in LAFC. I'd say probably not, especially given the fact that he's now on the wrong side of 30, but he definitely could have that connection he's had with Bob Bradley in the past kick back up again and, you know, be a solid number 2/3 striker for Toronto FC this season. My concern from this signing, though, is nothing to do with Diomande. It's just the trend that I'm seeing with the guys that TFC is bringing in is this is another 32 or older player. Hedges was 32, Diomande's 32, Vasquez is like 36. A lot of Toronto FC players right now, and a lot of new guys we're bringing in are nearing the end of their careers, to put it lightly. And so we're in a situation where like this is definitely a rebuild on the fly. We knew the second Insigne was announced that this was going to be a rebuild on the fly. However, a lot of times these rebuilds, like especially one manager trying to rebuild, even if it doesn't work out for them and like they don't win, they have pieces that they brought in that are still useful going forward. With Toronto FC right now, like, this is a very much win right now team, because like, if you don't win right now, if you don't win this season, or like worst case scenario next season, like they're pushing for an MLS Cup this season. If they don't do it in the next 2 years, all of a sudden Diomande, Hedges, Vasquez, these guys are all going to be basically retiring or at the very, very end of like their playing careers and nowhere near as useful as they are right now. So like, all the guys we're bringing in to win this season. It's a bit concerning because the team we had last year was bad. They were second last in the Eastern Conference. This isn't like just like plug a couple gaps, bring in a couple guys, and all of a sudden, boom, you're a contender. This is a team that needed a whole on, like, full change in the roster. Like, yes, okay, maybe if Kay and Azorio aren't hurt, the midfield doesn't need to be changed that much. But in every single position, we either didn't have starters or had zero depth. This is a squad at the end of last season was basically like 10, 11 players away from being a true contender for MLS Cup. And so to make all those changes in one off season is incredibly, incredibly difficult. And to make all those changes in one off season with the mindset of the next season has to be the one, it's an interesting move, and it's a stressful move, and really it puts Bob Bradley in a very, like, if this season isn't successful, if this team doesn't make the playoffs or barely squeaks into the playoffs, Bob Bradley's tenure is automatically a failure. Like, this is the year with the guys that we've brought in. I don't know, maybe they'll bring in some younger guys now and change my mind, but like, with the guys they've brought in so far, this year has to be the year. I mean, in the end, we still have a long way to go before we have a full starting 11, a full squad ready to compete for MLS Cup. And it's very obvious that this team wants to compete for MLS Cup this year. So we have at least 5 more players coming in before the start of the season, I'd have to imagine, just of who's missing. Like, we need another goalie, we need another center back, we need another left back. That's 3 right there. And then, like, yeah, bring in another midfielder, another piece of depth, a fullback or on the wing. That's 5. So you need at least 5 new players. And so maybe they bring in younger guys for some of those spots. Who knows? This definitely, based on the signings they're making, is a TFC team that is getting ready to go and try to win MLS Cup this coming season. The guys they've brought in, though, for me, just so far haven't been enough to really solidify that this actually could be the year. So that is for this video. As always, if you'd like to hit like, if you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, link is down below in the description, and I will see you next time.